What's up, YouTube? Today, I'm going to be ranking and reviewing every Nickelodeon Halloween special. I have meticulously combed through every single Nicktoon to see if they had a Halloween special, and I watched them all. Over 25 cartoons, and I'm going to be ranking them one by one from the very worst to the very best. The only rule I set for myself is that if a cartoon had multiple Halloween specials, I'm only ranking the first one they did. Sorry, Doug. No second chances. And with all that out of the way, let's get to ranking some spooky, silly Nicktoons.
My Anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
In last place, we have the Angela Anaconda episode, Boo Hoo. Right off the bat, I knew I was in trouble when the theme song started playing. It was ear-piercing.
My name is Angela, hey hello!
In this episode, Angela is upset because her mom makes her a crappy Halloween costume every year. So this year, she saves up enough cereal box tops to win an astronaut costume. She gets the costume just in time for Halloween and goes out trick-or-treating with her friends. But when they get to her house, her arch-enemy, Nanette Manoir, rips the tail off her astronaut costume, exposing her embarrassing bunny pajamas underneath. Then, Angela imagines various ways of torturing Nanette in a black and white horror fantasy sequence. And the episode ends with Angela stealing Nanette's candy and locking the door behind her. Overall, I really disliked this one. The characters' voices are all so annoying, and the design of the show is just ugly to look at. The only part I sort of enjoyed was just how much Angela hates her rival, Nanette Manoir. That's like the main driving force in her life.
Starring me, and not starring Nanette Manoir.
This isn't the Chum bucket.
In second to last place is the Fanboy and Chum Chum episode, There Will Be Shrieks. This episode opens up with Fanboy and Chum Chum dressed up as Frankenstein and Wolfman, excited to go trick-or-treating.
Trick or treat! It's 6 o'clock in the morning!
I'm sorry, but that is the only joke I laughed at this entire episode. So they go to the convenience store to hopefully get some candy to hold them over until it's time to go trick-or-treating, but sadly, it's haunted by ghosts, I guess. So next they go to this neckbeard comic book guy's place, but he's used all of his candy to build a candy ark after getting a message from God. Apparently. So finally they go to this pumpkin house across the street where they meet the Candyman, who invites them in and gives them all the candy they want. This really awful song starts playing while they eat the candy, and honestly, this just looks unfinished. Like, there's not even colorful backgrounds. The whole song just takes place in a white void. Out of the fantasy, the boys are stuffed, but the Candyman offers them one last piece of candy, which they accept, and thus they are cursed to never taste candy again, unless they are able to bring the Candyman 1,000 screams before the end of the day. So they go to their friend Kyle the Conjurer to help them, and he summons a demon to get the screams, but that doesn't work and they give up. Back at the pumpkin house, Kyle confronts the Candyman, but he pulls a Beetlejuice and scares Kyle so badly that he screams 1,000 times, thus completing Fanboy and Chum Chum's assignment and opening a wormhole that sucks all the candy out of the world. Luckily, the neckbeard guy created the candy ark with 2 of every candy to reproduce. So the day is saved, and there's enough candy for everyone. The end. This one was really painful to watch, guys. It was like things were just happening with no rhyme or reason. The characters' voices were really annoying to listen to the whole time.
Halloween! Halloween! It's finally Halloween! Yeah!
And this show is just not pleasant to look at. Personally, I think the show would have been a lot better if it was in 2D. All of the title cards and drawings of the characters always look nice, but I just don't think it works in 3D, at least the way they're doing it here. Also, never forget that Nickelodeon chose to pick up this show over Adventure Time. That has to be one of the biggest fumbles of all time.
Of the Midwest, because every single thing in it is mid.
Oh my god!
At number 23, we have the Middlemost Post episode, Scary Stories to Tell to Your Cloud. The episode opens up with a cute shot of the houseboat all decorated for Halloween. Inside, Parker the Cloud, Angus the Man, and Russell the Walrus are all carving pumpkins. They lose power, so they all decide to take turns telling scary stories. First up, Angus tells a black and white Frankenstein story that was, frankly, unremarkable. Then Parker tells a story about the middlemost goat, a man-eating goat, and Parker is dressed up as Cloud from Final Fantasy, which is kind of funny. A Cloud dressed as Cloud, but It really has nothing to do with the story. And the goat goes to college, and it's all just very random. Then their friend Lily joins to tell a story, Alien on the International Space Walrus, which is basically the movie Alien mixed with Star Trek aesthetic, where Parker plays the face-hugging aliens. But in the end, Parker was just an actual face-hugger, not an evil alien. Or was he? I don't know. And finally, the walrus Russell tells a story so horrifying that it scares everyone and they all run away. And then Russell looks at the camera and unzips herself to reveal that she was the goat, I guess? Yeah, overall I found this episode very underwhelming. I think they tried to do too many stories, none of which I found very funny or scary at all. There were definitely some funny drawings and poses, but the writing was pretty weak here in my opinion.
Taste me how to Doug, taste me how to Doug.
Next up, we've got one of the very first Nicktoons, Doug, in Doug's Halloween Adventure. Okay, so the episode opens up with Skeeter telling the story of this supposed haunted house that they built an amusement park around, and the grand opening is today, on Halloween. Doug dresses up as an Indiana Jones type character, and Skeeter dresses up as a rocket ship. Doug convinces Skeeter to do some trick-or-treating before they head out, because he's afraid of the ride and just wants to stall. They are embarrassingly old for this, as little children pass them by, so eventually Doug agrees and they go to the theme park. But there is a massive line for the ride, so by the time they make it to the front, the theme park is closing. So Doug, Skeeter, and Roger just sneak into the ride, and they're having fun, but halfway through the ride stops because the park has officially closed. Skeeter and Doug hop out of the ride and find the behind-the-scenes area. Eventually they find Roger's shoes in the ride and think that he died, but he was really just pranking them. So Doug and Skeeter prank him back using the ride's high-tech holograms. And in the end, the ghost was real, I guess? Not really loving all these twist endings. Overall, this special was just a little underwhelming. I really like all the watercolored backgrounds and the design of the ride, but once again, it wasn't very humorous or scary. You know, for a guy named Doug Funny, he's not very funny. Next up, we've got the Halloween special from the short-lived Nicktoon, Cat Scratch. In this episode, the cats are decorating their mansion to look like a giant UFO to win the neighborhood house decorating contest. This attracts actual aliens who come down and cocoon Waffles and Mr. Blake. So Gordon has to save his cat brothers. But the aliens took over and flew the mansion into space.
That's space! Get that space out there!
That's what I've been telling you!
The cats get into a battle with the aliens and are eventually able to regain control and land their house back on Earth, where they win the house decorating contest. And then Waffles' watermelon hatches into an alien? The end. Another random twist ending. Overall, I thought this episode was pretty funny. I legitimately laughed at a few of the jokes, and the voice acting is great in this show. I also really enjoyed the style of this show. I think it deserved more than one season. But as a Halloween special, this left me wanting more.
Am I a cat? I'm a dog, barf!
Up next, we've got everyone's favorite dog and cat chimera, Cat Dog, in their Halloween special, Cat Dogula. It opens with some cool, spooky opening credits, and I really appreciate that. It makes it feel like a real special episode. Dog is dressed up as Count Dogula for Halloween, and Cat is dressing up as a cool surfer dude with a garlic lei around his neck. There's a special news bulletin on TV that all of the cows in town have been attacked by vampires and are now undead vampire cows. So all of the townspeople form an angry mob to protect themselves from the vampire attack. Cat and Dog ignore this and go out trick-or-treating anyway, to a fun little song sequence.
Feed me chocolate, give me zits, wreck my teeth, make me sick, make me hurl a Halloween brick.
Apparently the vampires are actually a swarm of vampire ticks who bite Dog, but they avoid Cat thanks to his garlic lei. The angry mob spots Vampire Dog and chases them into a nearby tree, so Dog turns into a bat and flies them out of there. They meet up with their friend Lola, who explains that the only way to cure a vampire is to drench them in garlic juice. So they head to the old abandoned garlic factory to find enough garlic to cure them. Meanwhile, the vampire ticks turn the angry mob of townspeople into an angry mob of vampires, and they chase down Cat as their final victim. There's a lot of chasing and running around the old factory, but eventually Cat is able to turn on a giant garlic crusher and drench the entire town in garlic juice, thus turning them all back into non-vampire humanoid animals. Oh, and then in the end, Winslow shows up, and apparently he's been turned into a werewolf, because every Halloween special needs a random twist ending, I guess. This one was alright. It started off pretty strong with the trick-or-treating song, but by the time they made it to the garlic factory, I felt like the special just dragged on for way too long.
Looks like you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo.
Up next, we have the Jimmy Neutron Halloween episode, Nightmare in Retroville. This episode starts with Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen talking about what they want to be for Halloween this year. So Jimmy invents a machine that can turn you into any monster you want. Jimmy's machine has hundreds of monsters to choose from, including... Wait, is that? Ugh. Anyway, Sheen chooses to be a werewolf, and Carl wants to be a Dracula because of the cape.
That was my cape, look.
And the three of them fly off in Jimmy's hover car to go trick-or-treating. Meanwhile, Jimmy's dad falls into the lab and accidentally turns himself into a Frankenstein monster. Predictably, Sheen and Carl turn into actual bloodthirsty monsters and run off, leaving Jimmy behind. Carl attacks Cindy, turning her into a vampire, and Sheen attacks Libby, turning her into a werewolf. Jimmy tries to help his friends, but there are too many of them, and all the monsters start fighting each other. So Jimmy uses his machine to turn himself into a giant flying octopus monster so that he can grab all of the monsters and turn them back to normal. And he is just horrible to look at here. Ugh. I was surprised to rank Jimmy Neutron this low on the list because I really love the show, but this episode just didn't do it for me. While there are some funny moments throughout, and the voice cast all did a great job, this episode felt extremely empty. Like, it's Halloween night, and the streets are empty, void of people. If this were When Pants Attack, or The Phantom of Retroland, I'm sure it would have been ranked higher on the list. For this episode, I don't think I can go any higher. Sorry, Jimbo. Up next, we have the Loud House Halloween episode, Tricked. And right off the bat, I love the Halloween vibes. There's decorations in every frame. They're kind of nailing it. The goth sister is putting together a spooky haunted corn maze with all of her other sisters' help. Meanwhile, Lincoln and his friend Clyde come up with a plan to go trick-or-treating in the rich neighborhood to get bigger candy bars. They all go trick-or-treating, and it looks like Lincoln Loud is dressed up as Eminem. Lincoln and Clyde decide to bury their candy and come back for it later. Meanwhile, back at the corn maze, these bullies show up and steal all the candy and wreck the maze. So Lincoln and Clyde follow them to steal the candy back. But it's too late. The bullies have already eaten the candy. So Lincoln and Clyde guide the bullies back to the maze where they are properly scared by all the Loud sisters. And this is a cool song sequence. I really dig the visuals, but I do not like the song. In the end, Lincoln digs up his candy to hand out to all the trick-or-treaters. As he says, it's even sweeter to give candy out than it is to eat it all yourself. Or something like that. I thought this was a pretty good Halloween special. The visuals were giving really nice fall and Halloween vibes throughout the whole thing. There was just nothing that really amazed or delighted me here, you know? Ah, Real Monsters. This one is unique because it's not only the Halloween episode, but also the very first episode of the show. This episode starts with a little kid taking out the trash when he sees a little red gremlin that scares the crap out of him. We follow that little gremlin back to the dump where all of the monsters live, and they are all so disgusting. We've got this guy who holds his own eyeballs, this guy whose head is a pencil, and he writes a note on his hand and then tears off his own flesh to pass it along, and this guy who is just horrifying to look at. And then this happens. Ew! All of the monsters are in class, like some sort of monsters university. Anyway, these three monsters sneak out because it's Halloween night where they can run around and cause all the mischief they want. And that's what they do. They go trick-or-treating, they go to a Halloween house party where they eat food and scare some kids, and at the end of the night, they run into some teenagers who are TPing and egging a house. The little red gremlin gets mixed up with the human child from the beginning of the episode, who decided to dress up like the monster he saw. So the kid accidentally goes back to the monster world, and the monster goes back to the human world. And the rest of the episode plays out as you might expect, with the monster going to human school in disguise, and the human kid going to monster school in disguise. At the end of the episode, they are able to swap back, and all is back to normal, or as normal can be in this disgusting monster world. Overall, I thought this episode was just okay. I was really liking the first half, with the monsters exploring around and causing chaos on Halloween night, but the second half, where they're just going to school, kinda lost me. It's a good pilot episode, setting up the world and the characters, but not a great Halloween special to me. Also, what the heck was up with this?
Just brown some ground beef.
And have a manwich night.
Up next, we've got probably the newest Nicktoon on the list, Big Nate, in their episode, The Ghostly Coven of Man-Witches.
We just brown some ground beef and have a manwich night.
In this episode, Nate is having a perfect day that gets interrupted when he learns there's going to be a test tomorrow. So Nate starts thinking of any way to get out of taking the test tomorrow, including hoping that the school turns into a giant spider and crawls away. Meanwhile, the teachers are talking about how badly they want to win the middle school bake-off. Later, back at home, Nate's dad comes out dressed like a creepy clown. Apparently one of his friends from the bowling league died, and he was a professional clown. So they are giving him a traditional clown funeral. Nate and his friends decide they are going to get out of the test by haunting the school. Apparently their town used to be home to a coven of man-witches.
I just brown some ground beef and have a manwich night.
So they sneak into the school at night to make it look extra haunted. Meanwhile, Nate's dad attends the clown funeral, and I love this side plot. Back at the school, Nate and his friends hear demonic chanting and go to check it out. But they lose one of their friends and spot a cloaked figure roaming the school. On his way home, Nate's dad wrecks his car and ends up in a sewer drain, leading to this great Stephen King It reference. The kids escape the school, but Nate stays behind to find their lost friend. He heads to the basement, where he finds witches performing a ritual sacrifice. So Nate jumps in to save his friend, but it turns out it was just the teachers practicing their baking and wearing cloaks to protect their clothes. So Nate helps them out with their baking, and in the end, Nate's dad shows up, accidentally triggering all of the pranks that Nate had set up in a hilarious clown fashion. The end. Overall, this was a really solid special. It didn't have that much to do with Halloween specifically, but it looked great, and there were a lot of jokes that were working for me, especially all the stuff with the dad at the clown funeral. That was some great dark comedy right there.
He's a phantom.
Breaking into the top 15, we have the Danny Phantom Halloween special, Fright Night. Danny Phantom is a show all about ghosts and horror, so naturally, I was excited to see what Butch Hartman and co. did with their Halloween special. This episode revolves around Danny and Dash competing to put together a haunted house room for their teacher, Mr. Lancer's Halloween party. Whoever puts together the scarier room avoids detention, and Danny and Dash make a side bet as well.
Okay, and when you taste defeat, you have to eat these!
Ew, why? Anyway, Danny's goth friend Sam brings him an old book on the Fright Night, a ghost who is supposedly the spirit of Halloween. So Danny decides to decorate his haunted room after the Fright Night's castle, and even goes to the ghost zone to steal the actual Fright Knight's sword, accidentally freeing him and releasing him into the real world. They get into a big fight, and Danny is eventually able to steal the sword from him and trap him back in the ghost zone by sheathing his sword into Tucker's trick-or-treat candy pumpkin. And that's the end of the episode. Overall, I really like the art direction and design of the Fright Night in this episode, but I kind of wish they went into his backstory and explained how he is the spirit of Halloween. I think that this episode could have benefited from being a longer episode, as the whole thing felt a little bit rushed. Oh, also, this happens at the end.
Bon appetite, whitey, loser!
Ew, why? Up next, we've got the Wild Thornberries Halloween episode, Naimina Inkiyo. In case you don't know, this show is about Eliza Thornberry, a young girl who gains the ability to talk to animals, and her family, who are nature documentarians who travel around the world in their RV making films. This episode starts with an African boy throwing a spear at Eliza to scare her. Eliza's parents are invited to visit the Maasai tribe, while Eliza stays to play with her new friends. They show her how to throw a spear and hunt lions, and they tell her to stay out of the forest as it is haunted by an evil monster, and a little girl once went in there and never came back. Eliza ignores their pleas and heads into the forest anyway to prove that she is brave. After Eliza doesn't come back right away, the chief sends 3 of his bravest warriors to go look for her. While in the forest, Eliza falls into a thorn bush, gets stuck in quicksand, and then when the warriors find Eliza, it scares her so she runs away deeper into the woods. Kind of embarrassing that a little girl can outrun these trained Maasai warriors, but that's beside the point. It's getting dark out, and Eliza finally admits to Darwin that she's afraid, and he comforts her in this really, really sweet moment. Nigel goes into the forest to find his daughter, while her mom stays behind in case she comes back. Eliza hears a voice calling her name, and she thinks it's the ghost of the little girl who went missing, trying to help her. So she follows the voice, and it leads her to her mom, who was calling her name over the loudspeaker of the van. In the end, they all celebrate around a fire, and the tribe give Eliza her own spear, inviting her to be an honorary Maasai. They all dance around the fire as a possible spirit watches through a tree. And that's the end. Overall, I really liked how different and grounded this one was. Like, the fear of being lost in the woods at night is a very real fear. And I thought the art direction and colors in the haunted forest were so cool looking. And I really liked the different take on a Halloween special with the Maasai tribe. Also, Donnie is hilarious. Up next, we've got another Klasky Supo show, Rocket Power, with their Halloween special, The Night Before. This episode opens up with the kids skating around Venice Beach, all decorated for Halloween, when they run into this masked kid who tells them about Mischief Night, which is the night before Halloween, where teenagers go out and prank houses. Otto agrees to join, but Reggie doesn't want to risk getting in trouble and getting grounded before Halloween. Sam and Twister join Otto, but Reggie stays behind and watches scary movies with her dad, Raymundo. It's dark and spooky out, and they make it to the first house, but they trigger light-up decorations which spook them off. On the TV, they announce that anyone caught out on Mischief Night will spend the night in jail, so Reggie heads out to warn the boys. The kids come across some troublemaking teens TPing a tree, and the owner catches them and sicks his dog on them. Narrowly escaping, the kids decide to give up and head home, just as Reggie finds them. But so do the police. The boys bail, leaving Reggie alone at the scene of the crime. The officer takes Reggie home and informs her dad that she was caught out on Mischief Night. Reggie's gonna take the fall, but Otto steps up and admits that it was his fault. As punishment, Raymundo makes them all go trick-or-treating in embarrassing matching pumpkin costumes with him on Halloween. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It reminds me of the excitement of going out with your friends for the first time without parents. It had a good message in the end, and I really loved the early 2000s vibes of the whole thing.
Harvey Birdman Extreme for Teens, Harvey Birdman Bon Appetit, or Harvey Birdman's Baby Mystery Club.
Up next, we have the wonderful Harvey Beaks in their special, Les Cornets of Doom. And right off the bat, this episode starts with a spooky variant of the theme song, so bonus points for that. The episode opens with Harvey and his friends completing an extremely easy corn maze created by these French squirrels.
Well, we shall show them next year.
And then the opening credits roll, and we see that this episode was written and directed by Chris and Shane Houghton, the brothers who would go on to create Big City Greens on Disney Channel. We cut to the next year, and the kids go into the corn maze again, but this time it is much bigger and more complicated than the year before. The sun starts to set, and they are lost in the corn maze at night. The corn maze closes in on them, so they dig their way out, where they find the evil French squirrels controlling the maze underground. So, Harvey and his friends scare the squirrels in revenge. In doing so, they accidentally destroy the squirrel's den and the maze. The end. Overall, I thought this was a really fun Halloween special. They had good jokes, nice fall vibes, and a corn maze, which is near and dear to my heart. This was such a good show, and I really wish it got more than its short 2-season run. Shout out Harvey Beaks. Moving on.
You have very good parents!
Up next, we've got the Fairly OddParents Halloween special, Scary Godparents. This special opens up with Timmy watching an episode of Crash Nebula. Crash Nebula is fighting these Jackobots, and Timmy wishes that he could be a Jackobot for Halloween. But there's only one copy of the costume, and the rich kids already bought them, so Cosmo and Wanda can't wish them for Timmy. And if I was Timmy, I would be pissed. That's ridiculous. They can't make him a costume? What can they do? Timmy's evil babysitter, Vicky, takes Timmy, AJ, and Chester out for trick-or-treating. Meanwhile, aliens are watching Earth, planning their invasion. Upset with their lame costumes, Timmy wishes for everything to be real and scary. And we get this song sequence, Real and Scary, that, once again, I thought the visuals were really cool. But Timmy's singing voice is just nails on a chalkboard to me at this point.
Scary! I wish this was one freaky scene! I wish the whole world were real scary! Tonight on Halloween!
So now, Timmy is a real mummy, but everyone else's costumes made them into whatever they were dressed as too, including Cosmo and Wanda, who lose their magic powers because they weren't dressed as fairies, and the Jackobots, who all combine to become a Pumpkinator designed to destroy Earth. Mark Chang, the alien, comes down to Earth to save Vicky from this doomed planet, because he's in love with her, I guess. So, Timmy goes into the costume store and puts on everything left in the bargain bin to become the Crimson Chin Crash Nebula Vampire Ballerina. Timmy tries to bite the Pumpkinator with his vampire teeth, but he loses a tooth chomping down on the hard metal. Thinking fast, Wanda puts a pillow on top of the giant vampire tooth, thus summoning a tooth fairy, who Wanda steals their wand and crown and becomes a fairy herself again. Quickly, they wish for everything to go back to normal, and that's the end of the episode. Overall, I thought this was a really good Halloween special. It had all the classics, trick-or-treating, monsters, spooky vibes. I just think they overdid it a little with the whole alien plot. They had almost nothing to do with this special, and I would have preferred if they spent more time with the monsters on Earth rather than the aliens who just happened to be watching them that day for some reason.
Go ninja, go ninja, go! Go ninja, go ninja, go!
Breaking into the top 10, we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series from 2012 on Nickelodeon. Specifically, the episode The Curse of Savanti Romero. Now, this is the 118th episode from the 5th and final season of the show, and I did not know that going in. So to say I was a little confused would be an understatement. This episode opens up with April O'Neil and Casey going out on Halloween, and April is dressed up as Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, so we're off to a wild start. Then they are attacked by demon dogs and vampires, and Casey gets bit, and the credits start. Bonus points for special Halloween credits again. After the credits, we're back in the Turtles' lair where they're watching Star Trek and working on their Halloween costumes when they get a call from April, so they rush into action, tie up Casey, but then April gets bit by vampires and turns. Also, I guess April has telekinetic powers in this show? I did not know that. Then, some sort of Norse time goddess comes down to save the Ninja Turtles, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little lost at this point, guys. Apparently, this demon, Savanti, traveled through time and recruited a bunch of monsters through history to help him take over the world or something. Then, Michelangelo tried to rizz up this time goddess.
Don't worry, girl. I got your back. And front.
But the demon Savanti finds them, so the goddess opens up a portal to save the turtles, and they travel back to ancient Egypt. Apparently the Pharaoh is the first monster that Savanti recruited, so they hope they can stop him before he gets any of the monsters on his side. The turtles enter the pyramid and fight off a bunch of mummies before finally making it to the Pharaoh's chamber, where the Pharaoh awakens, and Savanti is in there too. The Pharaoh attacks them with his ancient mummy magic, a badass fight ensues, and Leonardo cuts the Pharaoh's head off, but that doesn't do much. Mikey stops Savanti, and they trap the mummy in his tomb, but he and Savanti escape, so the Turtles and Renee have to follow him in time to the Middle Ages. And that's where the episode ends. That's when I learned that this is part 1 of a massive 4-part Halloween special. They go on to travel to the Middle Ages with Dracula and Wolfman, the 1800s with Frankenstein's monster, and finally, modern-day New York, where the Turtles have an epic battle with the classic movie monsters for the fate of the world. ultimately winning and turning everyone back to normal, of course. Overall, I think I probably would have gotten more out of this if I had seen the previous 117 episodes leading up to this, but I really appreciated its epic scope and the inclusion of all the classic Universal movie monsters. This is not my personal favorite version of the Ninja Turtles, but I do respect it for being the first Nicktoon Ninja Turtle series, leading way to Rise of the TMNT, and now Tales of the TMNT, all of which are great in their own ways. Cowabunga, dudes.
Rudy's got the chalk.
Okay, next up we have the Chalk Zone special, Pumpkin Love. In this episode, Rudy wants to win his school jack-o'-lantern contest, but his bully is outside, smashing everyone's pumpkin carvings. So, Rudy decides to go through the Chalk Zone to get to school, and Halloween in Chalk Zone looks amazing. Rudy draws himself a fire truck and drives over to where the school chalkboard is. But before he makes it into the school gym, his chalky friend Snap hops in the fire truck and drives him away. They head over to the graveyard for the annual Chalk Zone Halloween party, and it's awesome. There's this badass skeleton band playing, and I thought these designs looked familiar, so I looked it up, and yes, this episode was designed by Jorge Gutierrez in one of his first animation jobs. That is so cool. The pumpkin singer of the band falls in love with Rudy's jack-o'-lantern and wants to marry it, so Rudy sneaks in and steals his pumpkin back, skateboarding past all the ghouls and goblins. Eventually, Rudy gets trapped and surrounded, but Snap flies down on a broom and saves him. They fly through the portal back into the school gym, and Rudy Taputi wins the jack-o'-lantern competition. Overall, I really like this Halloween special. The visuals and designs of Halloween and Chalk Zone were so much fun, and I really like the song that the skeleton band played, and the overall quick pace of the episode. Fantastic. Moving on.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby.
At number 8, we've got the Rocco's Modern Life Halloween episode, Sugar Frosted Frights. This episode was directed by Doug Lawrence, aka Mr. Lawrence, aka SpongeBob artist and the voice of Plankton. The episode opens up with a spooky narrator and then a news report warning of the Hopping Hessian, an old revolutionary ghost who haunts the graveyard on Halloween. Rocco and Heifer head out trick-or-treating in their costumes. Then they head over to their friend Filbert's house, who they find hiding in his shell. Filbert explains that he's afraid of Halloween because of his crazy Aunt Gretchen. Every year she would terrify young Filbert with scary stories of the Hopping Hessian. They convince Filbert to go out trick-or-treating anyway, where Filbert tries his first piece of candy ever, causing him to go mad off the sugar. Filbert mainlines a ton of sugar, and we go into this fantasy where Filbert is a giant demon. Filbert runs away into the graveyard in his sugar-induced delusion. So Rocco and Heifer run after him to help him back up. They're going to take him home, but the ghost of the Hopping Hessian finds them and chases after them. The Hessian throws his leg at them, and we fade to black. And then we come back to Halloween the next year. Filbert opens his shutters like Scrooge on Christmas morning, and he excitedly runs over to Rocco's house, only to find Rocco, Heifer, and the Hessian all hanging out and watching a slideshow of the events of last Halloween. The Hessian gets ready to head back to the graveyard to do some scaring, and all seems well, until Filbert points out,
Who took those pictures?
And that's how it ends. I like this one a lot. The Halloween vibes were there, and the wild, absurdist humor got me. I laughed out loud multiple times while watching this episode. Totally my sense of humor. Moving on. At number 7, we've got the Rugrats Halloween special, Candy Bar Creep Show. This episode opens up with Tommy noticing the adults are all acting weird with Halloween coming up. Angelica explains what Halloween is to the babies. Sort of.
Because it's Halloween! What's Halloween?
The grown-ups set up a haunted house for the trick-or-treaters, and the babies are super confused as to what's going on. But they want some candy. They see the kids scream, and then they get candy. So they think that if they scream, they will be rewarded with candy. But that obviously doesn't work, so they sneak into the haunted house to find the candy. The babies are all having fun, but they hide because Angelica is coming in, and they accidentally terrify all the trick-or-treaters. The babies find the Reptar bars and enjoy their candy in peace. This was a great Halloween special. Short and sweet. I really enjoyed the loose animation style on these early Rugrat episodes, and I really loved the fresh perspective on showing how truly weird Halloween is through the eyes of a baby. People dress up in crazy costumes and act scary and get candy? It is really odd if you think about it with fresh eyes. Great episode. Moving on. At number 6, we have the Mighty Bee Halloween special, Catatonic. I know, I'm really surprised to see it this high on the list as well. Allow me to explain. This episode opens up with Bessie getting her Halloween costume delivered, but she gets the wrong one. She ordered a pirate costume, but she got a cat costume instead. Her little brother Ben is dressed up as Rambo, who shoots plunger arrows. One of the arrows hits Bessie in the head, and suddenly she thinks she's a cat. And Happy, her dog, wants to attack her because he hates cats. Ben quickly tries to fix this so that he does not get in trouble. So he traps her in a cat container and takes her to the vet. The vet is super weird.
This is an unusually large cat.
That's my sister!
And Ben and Bee get into a fight before she escapes. Ben traps her again and takes her back home. He tries to bring Bessie back to normal by dressing up as her and showing off all of her honeybee badges. The dog is going crazy, and the mom is having allergies because she's allergic to cats, which is just hilarious because, like, how does that even work? Happy even locks himself in a room to stop himself from attacking Bessie, and this scene is just amazing. The acting and animation on the dog is so good here. Finally, Happy snaps and goes nuts chasing Bessie from roof to roof. They land in someone's house, terrifying a group of children, and finally run back home, knocking their mom down, who hits her head, and now she thinks she's a real witch. Ben shoots Bessie with another arrow, returning her back to normal. But just then, their mom shows up as an evil witch, haunting them. The end. Overall, I thought this was a fantastic Halloween special. The animation on Cat Bessie and their dog going rabid was fantastic. And most of the jokes were pure visual comedy. Just great cartooning here overall. I would give the Mighty Bee an A+.
I gotta sing the Doom song now! Doom, 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 doom!
Breaking into the top 5, we have every Hot Topic wearing emo kid's favorite cartoon, Invader Zim, with their Halloween special, Halloween Spectacular of Spooky Doom. This episode opens up with Zim freaking out in class because all of the kids are dressed in Halloween costumes and he doesn't know what's going on. Zim notices that his rival Dib keeps phasing in and out of existence and having nightmarish visions. So the students vote to send Dib to the Crazy House for Boys.
Can we use one of our crazy cards to send him to the Crazy House for Boys?
I don't think you could get away with any of this nowadays, but yeah, this was made in a different time. Anyway, while in the back of the van, on the way to the insane asylum, Dib keeps phasing into a parallel nightmare realm, kind of like the Upside Down from Stranger Things. Apparently, the night before he was experimenting looking into other dimensions when something went wrong, and that's what's causing these jumps he's experiencing. In the asylum, Dib is once again transported to the nightmare dimension, and the visuals here are awesome. Back on Earth, Zim has boarded up his house because he doesn't understand Halloween and fears the ravenous human children. Dib escapes the asylum and runs to Zim's house for help. Zim refuses, but then gets transported into the nightmare realm with Dib. All of the monsters want to capture Dib, as apparently the portal to our world exists within Dib's head. So Dib puts his collar on Zim and gives him up to the monsters. The monster leader is upset that they kidnapped the wrong person, so she sentences this one monster to hell. And it's pretty hilarious.
Well, see you guys.
Then there's this totally out of nowhere dancing skeleton joke that is just so perfectly indicative of that early 2000s random humor. Zim is able to escape the monster's lair, and meanwhile, back on Earth, Gur is going absolutely wild stealing all the kids' candy. Dib finds the monster versions of his dad and sister, who are just terrifying, and they are able to capture and trap Dib. But Zim busts in on this sick Skullwalker invention and steals Dib back. Zim is able to open the portal in Dib's head and returns back to his dimension. Then, Dib jumps into his own head and turns inside out to return to Earth in this absolutely disgusting body horror animation. So gross. Finally, the leader of the monsters attempts to enter our world through Dib's head, but upon seeing how truly disgusting and horrific the children of Earth are, she chooses to stay in the Nightmare Realm instead. The end. This was an amazing Halloween special, and if I were ranking on horrific visuals alone, I think this one would easily win. This show has got to be one of the most sick and twisted kids television shows ever created. Also, this episode was storyboarded by Brian Konietzko, the co-creator of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Can you believe that the same guy who gave us beautiful imagery like this also gave us this horrific episode? Truly a talented, versatile artist. Moving on.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
At number 4, we have the Angry Beavers and their Halloween special, The Day the World Got Really Screwed Up. This special opens with some epic opening titles, making it feel like a really special episode. The Beavers are out trick-or-treating the night before Halloween, and not having much luck, when they end up at the mansion of their favorite B-movie actor, Oxnard Montalvo, who they are also dressed up as. They head into the mansion, and all of the monster movie props start to come to life around them as they search for candy. I love this style, it looks so cool. Also, I love how Dag and Norbert bounce off each other. Their voice acting is so natural and silly.
And where's the candy?
Did you say Gunda?
Candy!
The Beavers find their favorite actor in a room, and a scientist plays a short film he created to explain that a creature has been sent from another dimension to feed on their reality, and the alien becomes larger and stronger.
Making me larger, making me stronger.
The alien is becoming larger, becoming stronger.
Suddenly, everything goes black and white like an old movie, and the monsters break in. Oxnard attempts to fight off the monsters, while the scientist works on an invention, and Dag and Norbert help out the damsel to Luca Lake. The doctor invents a machine to take out the monsters, but Oxnard just throws it at them. And that works, apparently. The monster destroys the house, and it's up to Dag and Norbert to use the device to destroy the beast. The military gets a reading that Oxnard's house has become a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity.
Oxnard, we're getting a reading that your house is a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity.
So they send in the troops. The Beavers bash their way through the monsters and slingshot the device at the main monster, defeating him and returning the world back to normal. And the Beavers save the day, as the narrator rants about how stupid and nonsensical that whole thing was as the credits roll.
A story that made absolutely no sense. I mean, for instance, if the alien could bring the monster statues to life through that manservant guy, why did it need the beavers? I mean, beavers can't even talk and be... Nah, forget that.
I really loved this Halloween special. There were so many funny moments. I loved the references to old B scary movies, and I loved the mixing of styles with the super cartoony beavers and the realistic humans and monster characters. Also, the chemistry between the two Beaver brothers is unmatched in my opinion. It's so naturally funny, and you can tell that the voice actors are just improvising off of each other a lot of the time. But there are still 3 more specials I ranked above this one.
Move it, football head! Hey, Arnold!
At number 3, we have your favorite football head, Hey Arnold. In the episode, Arnold's Halloween. This episode has a nice spooky opening with some great music. There is a B-movie about aliens playing on the TV, and Grandpa turns that off to talk about their annual Halloween party. Gerald and Arnold start scheming a plan to scare all the adults in the house during the party. Meanwhile, Helga's dad is having a poker night with the guys and tells his own story of an alien encounter he once experienced. Helga decides to dress as an alien like the one her dad described to scare him, but once she's dressed up, he doesn't even bother looking at her. Grandpa's house party looks nice and all is going well until Arnold and Gerald take over the radio and prank all the adults with a fake news report of an actual alien sighting. And they time it out perfectly with their classmates coming up to the house to trick-or-treat while they are dressed as aliens, to really scare the adults. A local news person intercepts Arnold and Gerald's radio signal and also thinks that it's real, quickly driving to where Arnold and Gerald reported the aliens were. The aliens show up to Grandpa's boarding house and scare all the adults, just as the newsman arrives to capture it on video. He sends the video to the news station, where the reporter does a story on it, freaking out the whole town. As icing on the cake to their prank, Arnold and Gerald decorated the town water tower with tons of lights to look like a UFO. But when they tell Stinky to activate the lights, it causes a massive power outage to the whole town and ends their radio broadcast. Arnold and Gerald have no idea if anyone even heard their broadcast, clueless to the fact that they have basically caused a full-on riot in the town. They admit that it was them to Grandpa, and quickly realize that their classmates are in danger, as the whole town now thinks aliens are real. Helga's dad suits up and heads out in his Hummer with his friends from poker night to go hunt some aliens and save the Earth. The whole town has gone completely mad. The kids head towards the water tower as it's the only place with light, and the rest of the town heads that way too, as they think it's the alien mothership that they must destroy. Everyone meets up at the water tower, and Mr. Pataki is about to attack what he thinks is an alien playing mind tricks, but it's actually just his daughter Helga, when suddenly Big Bob's bomb explodes on the water tower, raining down water and washing off all the aliens' makeup, revealing that they are actually just kids.
Oh, holy cow! I almost killed my own daughter!
In the end, they restore power to the town, and Arnold apologizes for all the trouble he caused, which his grandpa dismisses.
Terrified the entire city and nearly caused the end of the world? Ooh, I'm proud of you, boy.
The end. This is a fantastic Halloween special. It's a brilliant spoof of an actual event in which Orson Welles read The War of the Worlds on the radio, causing a real panic to some people who heard it and thought there was an actual alien invasion happening. It's just good fun Halloween mischief. The colored pencil backgrounds are gorgeous, and the music is fantastic throughout. I also love how they were able to work multiple storylines together, all culminating in a satisfying climax at the water tower. Amazing episode. Shout out to Craig Bartlett and the entire Hey Arnold team, but I've still got a couple episodes that I somehow liked even more. So without further ado, let's see number 2.
Randall, there is a cow outside.
There's a cow farm. You're gonna find cows outside.
At number 2, I have the Back at the Barnyard Halloween special, Back at the Boo Yard. I know. It seems insane to have this show this high on the list. Just trust me, hear me out. I've got my reasons. Let's just dive into the episode. So it starts off with a super fun custom opening song. Then, Pig tells the story of Hockey Mask Bob, who was a kid who was bullied and had his candy stolen and vowed to get his revenge on the town. So every year, people leave some candy in a tree by the old graveyard as an offering to appease Bob. Otis doesn't believe any of it, but regardless, they all dress up and go trick-or-treating, except for Freddie and Peck, who stay behind to witness the great zucchini in the zucchini patch.
So, why are you wearing dresses?
It's Friday night!
So they go trick-or-treating and get a bunch of candy, but then this snotty kid steals all their candy. Then Snotty steals candy from Hockey Mask Bob's tree and releases Hockey Mask Bob. But it was actually just Otis. But then Otis takes a handful of candy from the tree and unknowingly releases the real Hockey Mask Bob. Back at the barnyard, the animals throw a wild Halloween party, and it looks legitimately fun. But then the power is cut, and this joke happens.
Hey, Abby! Hit the circuit breaker while you're down there, would ya? And can you bring me up a root beer? No, wait, I changed my mind! Can you bring me up an orange soda? Actually, you know what? Just bring everything up. We'll probably use it eventually.
Hockey Mask Bob grabs Abby and Pig, and everyone else leaves the party. Hockey Mask Bob captures Otis's other friends, and now it's just Otis. Hockey Mask Bob corners Otis. He's totally trapped, about to die, when they reveal it was all a prank. The gang explains that they knocked Otis out for making fun of them, and then planned this elaborate prank for several months while Otis was unconscious. Then they attempted to wake him back up with this skunk, which is one of the funniest things I've seen.
But it didn't work, so we tried again. Still nothing. Finally, you came to and we started the prank.
After they finally get done explaining their elaborate prank, the real Hockey Mask Bob shows up. it turns out Freddy and Peck invited Bob after meeting him in the zucchini patch. And he's just a super nice guy.
He's a really cool guy. Say hi to our friends, Bob. Hi, everybody.
Although his dance moves are a little questionable. And that's the end. I remember this show being funny when I was a kid, and this did not disappoint. This was definitely the funniest of all the specials I watched, in my opinion, with a deluge of non-stop jokes throughout the entire episode. This special also pulled off the random twist that so many of the early specials on the list were trying and failing at. This show was created by Steve Odekirk, who also made the Barnyard movie, the Jimmy Neutron movie and TV show, along with a ton of other hilarious projects like Kung Pao Into the Fist and Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. So, while I had to rate Jimmy Neutron pretty low on the list, I was happy to find how hilarious this special was. However, there's still one more Nicktoon special I had to rate above this one. At the number 1 spot, I had to give it up to the GOAT, SpongeBob SquarePants, in the classic Halloween episode, Scaredy Pants. Let's just enjoy this one, shall we? The episode opens up with some wonderful, creepy, undersea Halloween imagery with a spider scuba diving and kids trick-or-treating. We cut to SpongeBob cleaning up the Krusty Krab, and he's easily spooked, so he tries to get out of there as fast as possible, but not before Mr. Krabs can tell his annual ghost story. So Mr. Krabs sets up an indoor underwater fire and tells him the story of the Flying Dutchman, who comes down every year to steal people's souls.
Do souls look like pickles?
As a matter of fact, they do.
Then Squidward sneaks up behind SpongeBob and...
I've come for your pickle.
Mr. Krabs and Squidward laugh about how easy SpongeBob is to scare, and SpongeBob heads home, getting scared of everything along the way.
Trick or treat!
Patrick comes over to SpongeBob's house and agrees to help make him scary. SpongeBob dresses up as a ghost, but it doesn't really work thanks to his square head.
Look, it's the haunted mattress! Okay.
Patrick makes a paper ghost, and they figure out what they're missing.
What's the difference between that ghost and me?
Don't tell me! I can do this! Don't tell me! Okay, tell me.
So, Patrick starts to shave SpongeBob's head down so he'll be round on top, like a real ghost. SpongeBob and Patrick have fun running around and thinking they're scaring people, before heading to Mr. Krabs' party at the Krusty Krab, where all the fish are dressed up, having fun, Mr. Krabs is choking on apples, Sandy and Squidward are drinking punch, and SpongeBob and Patrick sneak onto the roof to scare everyone at the party below. They cut the power to the party and terrify all of the fish in the Krusty Krab. They lower SpongeBob down, but then Patrick gets zapped by a jellyfish and drops SpongeBob and runs around screaming in pain. All of the fish laugh at SpongeBob and his square pants, accidentally summoning the wrath of the real Flying Dutchman. SpongeBob's costume is so pathetically unscary that the Dutchman is going to steal his soul. So he takes off SpongeBob's little sheet and then runs away screaming, revealing a shaved down SpongeBob with his brain exposed.
I scared him! Ah!
And then the whole town runs away in fear and disgust, except for Patrick.
Oh, that's not a hat. That's my brain.
Oh.
Oh, nope, Patrick too. But don't worry, in the last line, SpongeBob assures us that it grows back.
Don't worry, it grows back.
In my mind, this is a near-perfect Halloween special. It's funny, it's scary, it's silly, it's spooky. It takes place on Halloween, there's trick-or-treating and partying and real ghosts. It's just so much fun from start to finish. And that's my list. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far into my video, thank you so much. Please consider subscribing or becoming a member if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.
You've been to me.